Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to focus on the close range meta as of the Season 3 update. There were a lot of changes. Obviously, the FARA got nerfed, the MAC-10 got nerfed, and then there were several other little changes that actually made certain weapons better and certain ones worse. So we'll discuss that and see why certain weapons are standing out in the close range meta. I'll probably be doing a follow-up video for the long range meta, and then we'll do the top 10 loadouts. So if you enjoyed the video, learned something new, please do me a favor, hit the like button. Goal on today's video is 10,000 likes. So hopefully you guys can destroy that number. And if you're brand new or just haven't yet subscribed, double check, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on if you're looking to find your way back to the channel, because as it is right now, a little over 50% of you out there haven't yet subscribed. Quick reminder, my Gfuel code is currently discounted to 30% off. So if you're looking to stock up or try something new, there's lots of good flavors that were just added. Definitely go check it out. Link near the top of the description, or just code JGOD at checkout. So like I said, there were several changes to weapons in the patch notes. Most notably, the FFAR got nerfed, which kind of opens a door for other weapons. LC-10 got a bullet velocity buff, which allows it to compete a little bit further ranges, even though the ranges didn't actually change, more just the bullet velocity. They ended up changing damage values on the FARA, changing the recoil. AK-47 got a recoil buff, so it has significantly less, and it's a little bit more manageable. Krig got some changes, but that's specifically more for long range. QBZ got changes that don't really make sense for mobility because the TTK just doesn't compete. But let's go ahead and get into the data. I went through some of the various changes on the patch note stuff. And then I decided to kind of just look at the overall stats of the weapons, because I wanted to find out why they were not matching expectations, because the FARA was good before, but they changed the damage values and it didn't make sense, because that actually hurt the close range TTK but helped the far range TTK. As we can see right here, the TTK on the FARA is 790 RPM. That's one of the other things. Generally, meta weapons are between around 700 and around 1100, somewhere in that mix, to generally be meta. So I think that is one of the things that it has going for it. Mobility is insane. But one of the nice things that the data doesn't show you, if you're looking at, like, let's say true game data, unless you're mixing and matching, at least he doesn't have it on the site yet. Obviously, that's a feature he wants to add. But if you look at this, the chest shot TTK doesn't look all that great. It really just doesn't. But as long as you get one headshot, right here, you can see it lowers the TTK to 532, which is disgusting. And then 2 headshots will lower that again. And if you get 2 headshots, you'll end up with a faster TTK than we normally had on the FFAR, which is kind of nuts. So I expect this to get some kind of nerf to balance that part out, especially for the 2-shot headshot. But the 1-shot headshot, definitely good. 1 shot is all it takes to lower that TTK. That doesn't look all that great on the chest shot side of it, because it's a 5.56 type of weapon where you get the same damage for chest, stomach, and limbs. So when we carry that over to the AK-47, we end up with a little bit of a different scenario, since it does have a different value for the chest than it does for the stomach, and that matches the limbs. And the headshot, you end up with a little bit more inconsistency, where you're normally going to end up, if you're only landing stomach and limb, it's going to be a slower TTK of 600, like we're seeing with the FARA. If you land all chest shots, you can get a lower TTK. But if you land 1 headshot and 2 chest shots, you can also get the lower TTK of 500. So that's still pretty good. The gun is good, but it's a little less forgiving because of the 600 RPM, which just generally isn't fast enough, where people generally like it for the meta 700 plus. And then if you want the 2-shot headshot, you're really not getting the same insane bonus until you actually go to 4 headshots for that closer range. Everything we're talking about here is within 25 meters, and this one's in 27 meters, which pretty much that's going to cover all the ranges that you should be challenging in SMG. But even beyond that, it's TTK, you know, is still good for range TTK if you manage to hit the shots. Now we get into the Bullfrog, another competitor for the meta. We can see kind of how the damage values roll out. We're going to kind of speed through these because I do have screenshots kind of just showing them. But I wanted to point out where I'm getting this data from, so it makes clear sense what is happening. You need 1 headshot and the rest chest shots to get a 479 TTK from a 559. So the Bullfrog is disgusting. Up to about 13 meters, it's very, very deadly. And then you need 2 headshots at the next damage drop off to drop your TTK from 719 down to 639. A little less competitive above 13 meters. But if you put on the task force barrel, you could probably get that around 18 meters. And then the Bullfrog is definitely deadly as long as you get mostly chest shots, stomach shots, and at least one headshot. That's where it's going to shine. And then we got the MAC-10, which also received a nerf, has an open bolt delay. The TTK, you need 2 headshots or all chest shots and 2 headshots to get a 10-shot kill, which is 536, which still isn't even all that great. You know, you're going to have to land a lot of shots. Next damage drop off, you can see a TTK, 699. Kind of ends up with some issues here where it's like, man, I got to land 5 headshots or all chest shots. Like, you're losing consistency here. The TTK, they brutalize the MAC-10. There are scenarios like within this 15-meter range where it will feel good if you manage to hit 2 headshots and mostly chest shots. It'll be a 536 TTK, which is pretty competitive. But that's like, you have to do that or it doesn't happen. You end up with this 591 TTK, which is not good. It's just not good. LC-10. I kind of talked a lot of trash about the LC-10 because I was saying like it's a lot like a Bullfrog. It does have that going for it, that it does have a little bit more range than the Bullfrog by default. And then you put on the Task Force barrel, you'll get that. Plus now with the bullet velocity change, it is a little bit more competitive. But it ends up with a very similar scenario as the Bullfrog, where its TTK doesn't look all that great initially. As a lot of these, they just do not look crazy, even though the TTK on the Bullfrog is a little bit faster, 559. The actual added range changes things up a bit. Plus, you only need 1 headshot and multiple chest shots to get the 532, and that'll be up to 20 meters. So the range we're getting with the Task Force on the Bullfrog is very comparable to the LC-10, as long as we're landing at least 1 headshot. So they're very comparable, but the base on the Bullfrog without the headshots is technically better. So you kind of go head to head. And then we have the PPSH, which we found out that it is not good. It's just not. Sadly, it felt good on Rebirth because most people don't have full plates. But as we go through here, 900 RPM, up to 20 meters, which is a plus. But even its headshot only TTK, 513 milliseconds, which that's just not fast. Like, compared to these other ones where you could land, like, it's just not good enough. 645 is a terrible TTK, and then it drops off even harder, but that's pretty much where it goes. Good mag, decent mobility, decent recoil, but the TTK, you're just going to get outgunned. So with all that being said, let's look at how these compare graphically. So for these, I'm going to kind of breeze through them because they are mostly straightforward. They're just a visual representation of what we talked about. If you manage to only land chest shots, you can see that the AK-47 from Cold War is the true king. It shatters all the TTKs of all the weapons we're looking at here. Next up is the Bullfrog. You can see up to about 12.5 meters. And then we have another drop off where the MAC-10 is in there if you're only landing chest shots. And then the LC-10 and the FARA are pretty much aligned all the way up to about 20 meters. And then the FARA becomes better than the LC-10. Right around 15 meters, all these drop offs are happening. Pretty straightforward. Let's look at how that changes with 1 headshot in the mix. So with 1 headshot in the mix, you can see that the Bullfrog becomes the superior king of Verdansk for that close range if you're hitting the chest shots and manage the 1 headshot in the mix. And you can see that this little red line was the Cold War one. Still pretty good. Hasn't really changed this TTK because you just mostly land chest shots. But if you land too many lambs, the TTK could rise a little bit and not be quite as good as this number. Then we have the LC-10 and the FARA, again tied because they have similar fire rate, damage profile, shots to kill stuff. But up to about 20 meters. And then the FARA takes over again. And this is why I think you're seeing so much FARA usage, because look at this line right here. From around 13.5 meters, the LC-10 is actually a good SMG for these little mid-range shots. But then the FARA really allows you to, it's just too forgiving and too good. And you can kind of see that in this particular example here. If you're going to use an SMG as a true SMG, the Bullfrog is probably the best way to go. If you want a little bit more versatility at range, you're probably going to go with the LC-10 or just do the FARA, and then you got relatively good consistency all the way around. Now let's look at the 2 headshot. So now with the 2 headshot, we end up with a still similar scenario where if you end up with the Bullfrog is known as a headshot machine. And you can see the Bullfrog again within there at 12.5 meters. Nobody is beating you if you land 2 headshots. It's just not going to happen. The FARA starts to excel beyond the LC-10 and the Cold War AK-47. So this is where the FARA really shines, when you manage to hit 2 headshots. And this isn't even up to only the 12.5, 13 meters. This goes all the way up to about 25, 27 meters. AK-47, old reliable, but as your aim improves, this didn't really change much. It's still at that 500 TTK for all of these. And then you can see where the LC-10 and the MAC-10 start to suffer. If people have a little bit better aim and they manage to hit those chest shots, the Bullfrog is definitely superior. So that's kind of where it goes out. Let's go ahead and look at some class setups. So I think the worst from the bunch is actually the MAC-10. Pretty straightforward class setup. We'll use the Task Force, ammunition, 53 round mag. We can end up going with the no stock or the Raider stock to help that sprint to fire time. And then you get an extra attachment. If you want to use it for ADS speed, you go like Serpent Wrap. And if you want to use it for recoil control, you can end up going with the Field Agent Grip. Pretty straightforward class setup there. You kind of see how it looks. Let's go to the next one. Next up is the Cold War AK-47. Although it is pretty good, it is a little bit harder to use because of that rate of fire. Very unforgiving. It will delete people, but the times you delete people versus the times you're not deleting people, there's a bigger gap than some of the other weapons. And for that reason, I think you got to end up knocking it out of that top tier. I think you can go this route, but the recoil is still a little bit hard for some people. I think the optics, as far as the iron sights, even though they're very clean, you lose visibility on your target. So I would still run it like an SMG build, go with like the 45 round mag, maybe put on the underbarrel, and then you have the Raider skeleton stock type thing. And that would be the build. Pretty straightforward. If you want a little bit faster ADS, you can actually drop the GRU suppressor and then put on like the Serpent Wrap, and this will be a little bit faster for you. If you want an optic, you're kind of screwing yourself here, but then you'd have to drop that one and put on like the reflex sight, which gives you basically like an iron sight zoom, but without actually having iron sights. You'd have a literal dot on your screen. Next up is the LC-10, and pretty much similar build that we've had before. I would go Task Force, ammunition, regular 55 round mag. I wouldn't go to the fast mags or the Vandal speed loader. Just go with the regular 55 round mag, and then you'd end up figuring out what you want from there. Some people are going to go for the recoil control, which would be the Field Agent Grip option. You can go with the combat stock, the no stock, or the Raider stock, which is unlocked at level 54, pretty high up there. I'm not a fan, like I said, of the LC-10. Obviously after this buff, it's a little bit better, but like we're gonna see, we still have 2 options that are a little bit better than I think the LC-10. Next up is the Bullfrog, and right here we're still gonna do GRU suppressor, Task Force barrel. We're gonna go with the regular 65 round mag. We can go with the no stock or the skeleton stock, gives you better strafe speed. And then you get, again, the situation where if you want faster ADS, you go with the Serpent. If you want better recoil control, then you go with the Spetsnaz Grip, which helps the vertical and horizontal. And that's kind of how you end up building it out based off your individual preference. Straightforward. But as we know, we've talked about the overall top dog in terms of consistency, reliability, and will likely get a nerf is the Cold War FARA. Why do we have a double rifle meta? It's because the mobility on the Cold War weapons are just too fast. It just, when you stack them the right way, you end up with too much speed. You build it like you'd build an SMG. The reload speed is pretty bad. So you could go with the fast mags, take the penalty of ADS speed, and then make up for it in other ways. So you could like definitely equip this Serpent Wrap, and then you would just do the last stock, which is again level 54. They put the best attachments at the end for obvious reasons, so you can grind that out. So that's kind of how I would build it. I would use the last stock. Obviously you can use a Raider stock until then, and then you would just swap it over to the equivalent of the bottom one. Whatever this last attachment is the ideal way to go. So pretty much that's how I kind of build it out. That is the close range SMG type meta that we have for season 3, unless they change anything else. This is probably what most people will use. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learned something new. If you did, please do me a favor, hit the like button. Goal again, 10,000 likes. You guys have been crushing it. If you're brand new and want to find your way back, double check, make sure you're subscribed. We are getting very, very close to 1 million subscribers, and I appreciate everyone who's been here along the way. Reminder, Gfuel is again 30% off for the next few days. So use code JGOD at checkout, or just the link near the top of the description. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.